In the ever-evolving landscape of American politics, the question on many minds is, where are the Democrats? As President Donald Trump resumes his commanding presence in the media, the Democratic Party is grappling with its visibility and relevance. With daily announcements and a barrage of public statements emanating from the White House, the opposition party finds itself overshadowed, raising concerns about its ability to effectively communicate its message and rally support. This past weekend, however, marked a significant moment for Democrats as they organized hands-off protests across the United States. These demonstrations represented the largest nationwide show of opposition since Trump's return to office in January 2025. In an interview with Fred Hoffman, spokesperson and secretary for Democrats abroad in France, he noted, "The protests reflect a growing frustration among Americans who feel that their voices are not being heard. This grassroots movement underscores a critical shift within the party as it seeks to regain momentum and engage constituents disillusioned by the current administration." While the protests signal a potential resurgence, Democrats are also strategically targeting Republican incumbents in swing districts as they prepare for the upcoming 2026 midterm elections. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee (DCCC) released a list of 35 House Republicans they believe are vulnerable, particularly in districts that Trump narrowly won in the 2024 election. Chairwoman Representative Susan DelBene asserted House Republicans are running scared and they should be highlighting the potential for Democrats to capitalize on growing discontent with the current administration's economic policies, which have seen stock markets falter due to sweeping tariffs imposed by Trump. Despite these strategic moves, the Democratic Party is facing criticism for its perceived lack of direction and failure to unify under a coherent message. Doug Schoen, a former advisor to President Bill Clinton, characterized the party as rudderless and out of touch with mainstream America. He commented on the need for Democrats to connect with voters who may resonate with some of Trump's policies, albeit at a slower pace. This sentiment reflects a broader concern within the party that while opposing Trump is important, it must also present a viable alternative that aligns with the needs and desires of the electorate. Amidst this backdrop, some Democratic leaders have acknowledged the party's shortcomings. Senator Cory Booker articulated that the biggest mistake in the 2024 election cycle was failing to center people's concerns, particularly those who trusted Trump over Democrats. Similarly, Senator Adam Schiff remarked that the party must embrace boldness and a willingness to act decisively, stating, "You can move the country far and fast if you have the courage of your convictions." As Trump continues to dominate headlines, the Democrats find themselves at a critical juncture. They must not only articulate a robust and appealing platform but also effectively communicate their message to a public increasingly frustrated by economic uncertainty and political division. The upcoming midterms will be a litmus test for the party as they aim to reclaim control of the House of Representatives while navigating the complex dynamics set in motion by Trump's administration. Looking ahead, the Democratic Party faces the daunting task of revitalizing its image and reconnecting with voters. The combination of grassroots protests, strategic targeting of vulnerable Republican incumbents, and internal reflection on messaging will be essential as they gear up for a pivotal electoral cycle. The future of the party hinges on its ability to transform public discontent into a compelling vision that resonates with the American populace, setting the stage for a potential resurgence in the political arena. In a politically charged landscape, House Democrats are sharpening their focus on Republican incumbents in swing districts as the 2026 midterm elections approach. This strategic targeting aims to capitalize on a perception of vulnerability among certain Republican representatives, particularly those in areas that narrowly backed Donald Trump in the 2024 presidential election. The Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee (DCCC) released a list identifying 35 Republican targets, highlighting an optimistic sentiment within the party amidst ongoing national protests against the Trump administration and the impacts of his policies. The DCCC's list includes incumbents from key battlegrounds across the Rust Belt, Upper Midwest, and Sun Belt, reflecting a calculated approach to reclaiming congressional seats. Notably, 12 of the targeted Republicans represent states that Trump narrowly won, suggesting that Democrats believe they can leverage dissatisfaction with the current administration to spur electoral gains. Representative Susan DelBene, chairwoman of the DCCC, articulated this sentiment, stating House Republicans are running scared and they should be pointing to issues such as rising costs and cuts to essential services that have eroded trust among constituents. Recent special elections in Florida and Wisconsin saw Democratic candidates outperform expectations, further fueling party confidence. However, the landscape remains complex. While historical trends often favor the opposition party in midterm elections, the current configuration of the House presents challenges. Democrats currently hold 13 seats in districts won by Trump in 2024. Compared to just 3 Republicans occupying districts previously won by Kamala Harris. This reality underscores the uphill battle Democrats face, flipping at least 3 seats while retaining their current positions to assume control of the House. In response, Republicans are also mobilizing their strategies. The National Republican Congressional Committee (NRCC) recently unveiled a list of 26 Democrat-held seats they aim to contest, emphasizing their own campaign efforts and dismissing the DCCC's targets as implausible. NRCC spokesman Mike Marinello labeled the Democratic list as a laughable distraction from the party's low approval ratings, asserting that voters are not swayed by what he characterized as extreme positions. Among the Democrats' list of vulnerable Republicans are several incumbents who have gained notoriety for their contentious positions, such as Representatives Don Bacon of Nebraska and Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania. However, the list also includes some surprising targets in heavily Republican districts, suggesting a bold strategy to challenge incumbents who have historically secured their seats by wide margins. Democrats are particularly eyeing the open seat left by Representative Andy Barr of Kentucky, whose significant win in 2024 has now become a focal point for potential Democratic gains, especially following the recent success of Democratic Governor Andy Beshear in the area. As the political landscape continues to evolve, South Dakota's Democrats are also responding to frustrations over congressional access. Announcing a series of town hall meetings in response to perceived silence from Republican representatives, the state party aims to engage constituents disillusioned by the Trump administration's policies. This grassroots initiative reflects a broader trend among Democrats seeking to mobilize voter dissatisfaction and establish a stronger local presence. Looking ahead, the interplay of strategy, voter sentiment, and fundraising efforts will be crucial as both parties prepare for the midterms. The Republican Party, under the guidance of leaders like Representative Tom Emmer, has reported significant fundraising successes, raising $10 million in the first quarter of 2025 alone. This financial backing will be essential as they seek to maintain their majority amid mounting challenges from an energized Democratic base. Ultimately, the 2026 midterms promise to be a contest not only of candidates but of narratives shaped by public sentiment and policy impacts. As both parties refine their strategies, the outcomes will likely hinge on their ability to connect with voters and address the pressing issues that resonate within their districts. On April 8, 2025, a significant coalition of Republican governors led by Nebraska's Governor Jim Pillen publicly expressed gratitude to former President Donald Trump for his support of the U.S. Senate's amendment to the House budget resolution. This bipartisan gesture stems from a shared commitment to advancing a legislative agenda that resonates with millions of American voters who supported Trump in previous elections. In a letter co-signed by 21 governors, the leaders emphasized the necessity of a reconciliation bill that would not only bolster the executive actions taken by Trump but also solidify crucial policies into permanent law. The letter outlines key priorities that the governors believe must be addressed, including the urgent need to secure the U.S. border, revitalize American energy initiatives, restore military superiority, curtail wasteful spending, and prevent tax hikes that disproportionately affect the working class. We understand that more must be done to fully implement the agenda for which millions of Americans voted to see realized. The governors stated, highlighting their collective resolve to push Congress for action. The budget resolution is currently under review with a final vote expected in the House this week, making the timing of this outreach particularly strategic. Governor Pillen's involvement in this initiative is not just a reflection of party loyalty but also an indication of the political landscape as the 2024 elections approach. With many Republican governors rallying around Trump, the emphasis on fiscal conservatism and limiting government overreach resonates strongly within their constituencies. Among the other signatories of the letter are prominent figures such as Governor Kay Ivey of Alabama, Governor Brian Kemp of Georgia, and Governor Greg Abbott of Texas, all of whom represent states with significant political influence. In parallel to these developments, the political arena continues to evolve with notable shifts from other figures. In New Hampshire, Governor Chris Sununu announced that he would not pursue a bid for the U.S. Senate in 2026, a decision that may reshape the dynamics of upcoming races in the state. This announcement followed a series of speculations regarding his potential candidacy and reflects the broader uncertainties that many politicians face in a rapidly changing political environment. As the governor's letter gains traction, it underscores a pivotal moment in U.S. politics where cooperation among Republican leaders and the call for legislative action could redefine the party's strategies moving forward. The anticipation surrounding the House's vote on the budget resolution will likely serve as a litmus test for the Republicans' ability to unify their base and drive forward a coherent policy agenda. Looking ahead, the implications of these actions may ripple through the 2024 election cycle, influencing not only the Republican Party's positioning but also the legislative priorities that will define the next Congress. As Governor Pillen and his colleagues continue to advocate for policies that align with their constituents' values, the focus on economic stability and national security will remain at the forefront of political discourse in the months to come. As the political landscape evolves in the lead-up to the 2026 elections, House Democrats are sharpening their focus on key Republican-held districts, particularly those that have previously supported Donald Trump. Recently, the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee (DCCC) outlined its strategy targeting 35 seats currently occupied by Republican representatives. This move underscores a broader Democratic effort to capitalize on what they perceive as a shifting political environment, especially in light of recent special election successes. DCCC Chairwoman Susan DelBene stated, "We only need 3 seats to take back the majority, and they have a microscopic majority right now," during an appearance on MSNBC. With Democrats currently holding 213 seats and the House, gaining a net of 3 seats would allow them to regain control, a feat that has historically been challenging for the president's party during midterm elections. According to the American Presidency Project at the University of California, Santa Barbara, the average loss during a president's second term is approximately 20 seats. The targeted districts include not only those that Trump won by wide margins but also several that have previously shifted between party control. Notably, only 3 targeted incumbents, Don Bacon of Nebraska, Mike Lawler of New York, and Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, represent districts that Vice President Kamala Harris carried in the last presidential election. The DCCC is particularly keen on districts where economic issues resonate strongly with voters. DelBene emphasized that kitchen table issues such as the cost of housing, food, and healthcare will be central to their campaign messaging. This targeted approach extends to districts where Republican incumbents have faced controversies that might undermine their positions, such as allegations against Florida's Corey Mills and Tennessee's Andy Ogles. Mills, for instance, is currently under investigation for an alleged assault which Democrats hope could sway public opinion against him. In addition to targeting vulnerable incumbents, the DCCC is also looking to capitalize on Republican representatives who may be preoccupied with their ambitions for higher office. For instance, both Andy Barr of Kentucky and John James of Michigan are expected to focus on their respective bids for Senate and governor, potentially leaving them less equipped to defend their current positions. While Democrats are preparing to make gains, they also face the challenge of defending a number of seats in districts that Trump won during the last election cycle. This dual strategy reflects the complex dynamics of the upcoming election, where both parties are intensifying their efforts to solidify their bases while appealing to undecided voters. The Republican campaign arm, the National Republican Congressional Committee (NRCC), has responded robustly, targeting 26 Democratic-held seats in their own efforts to maintain their narrow majority. In a recent statement, NRCC spokesperson Mike Marinella dismissed the DCCC's targets as laughable, claiming that voters are aware of the perceived extremism of the Democratic Party. As the political climate continues to change, the focus on these 35 districts indicates that both parties are gearing up for what could be a contentious midterm election. With both sides outlining their strategies and pressing their narratives, the coming months will likely shape the electoral landscape as voters weigh their options. The outcome of this battle for control of the House will not only influence legislative priorities but also set the tone for the political discourse leading into the 2028 presidential elections. In a significant ruling on April 8, 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court allowed the Trump administration to proceed with the termination of approximately 16,000 probationary federal employees. A decision that underscores the administration's aggressive strategy to reshape the federal workforce. The court's unsigned order did not delve into the legality of the terminations but concluded that the nonprofits challenging the firings lacked the standing to sue. This ruling marks a critical moment in the ongoing legal battles over federal employment policies under the Trump administration. The case originated from an executive order issued on February 11, which directed the Office of Personnel Management (OPM) to terminate all but essential probationary employees. These employees typically include recent hires or tenured workers transitioning into new roles. Following this directive, various federal agencies began executing mass layoffs, leading to lawsuits from federal workers' unions and nonprofit organizations that argued OPM overstepped its authority and failed to follow proper procedures for terminating employees. Initially, U.S. District Judge William Haskell Alsop ruled that while the unions lacked legal standing, the nonprofits did have a valid claim because their operations were adversely affected by the government's reduced workforce capacity. However, the Supreme Court's ruling complicates the ability of affected groups to challenge such mass firings in the future, effectively siding with the administration's efforts to consolidate executive power within the White House. Notably, the decision does not eliminate the possibility for other parties with stronger standing arguments to pursue legal action. A parallel case in Maryland involves a coalition of 19 states and the District of Columbia that is seeking to reinstate employees at over 20 agencies, potentially offering a more robust challenge to the administration's actions. The outcomes of these cases, particularly the Maryland suit, may reshape the landscape for federal employee protections moving forward. While the Supreme Court's ruling temporarily halts the reinstatement of employees, it is important to note that many of the impacted workers remain protected under a separate injunction issued by a Maryland judge. This dual legal landscape creates uncertainty for the thousands of employees caught in the crossfire of these legal maneuvers, as their fates now hinge on ongoing litigation in multiple courts. Critics of the administration's strategy argue that these mass firings represent a significant threat to the stability and integrity of federal services. The American Federation of Government Employees, which participated in the lawsuit, expressed disappointment in the Supreme Court's ruling but emphasized that the fight for accountability and proper procedural adherence is far from over. As the legal battles continue, the implications for federal employment practices and the broader civil service landscape remain uncertain. The administration's aggressive approach may embolden similar efforts in the future. But the persistence of lawsuits and public outcry against these terminations could also lead to renewed scrutiny and potential reforms. How this situation unfolds will be crucial for understanding the future dynamics of federal workforce management and employee rights under the current administration.